Hi, everyone. First of all, good to see you all again. I want to wish you on behalf of the entire Hardware I/O team a very happy, healthy, and prosperous new year. Now, welcome from the sunny Netherlands to the first Hardware I/O webinar of 2021. We are happy to be back with Shivam, Senior Research Scientist and Program Manager at NTU Singapore, who will present some interesting side channel and fault attack vulnerabilities. As usually, today's webinar will consist of a 30-minute technical talk followed by a 10-minute Q&A. If you have any questions, please send them across the Zoom chat and we will answer them after the presentation is complete. Without further delay, I would like to invite Shivam to start your presentation.
Shivam, you are on mute.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Perfect. Yes, we can.
So thank you, Andrea and Andrex, for giving me this opportunity to speak on our recent work that we have been doing related to post-quantum crypto. So this work, which is titled Look into Few Sidechain and Fault Attack Vulnerabilities in Lattice-Based Post-Quantum Schemes, is a mixture of several works that we did. So I'll be touching upon some 4 or 5 works that we have done in the past 2 years. And also would acknowledge my co-authors who have taken actually quite a major role in realizing these works, which includes Prasanna, Ravi, Anupam Chattopadhyay, Sujoy Sinha Roy, and others. So just to introduce myself before starting this talk, I'm Shivam Bhasin, who is at the Center for Hardware Assurance at Temasek Labs in NTU Singapore. And I did my PhD previously from Telecom Biotech, where my topic was also related to hardware security. And my research interest over the years have included at different times practical implementation of side channel attacks, fault injection attack, hardware Trojan. I've been also working in the past few years for combinations of these kind of attacks. And very lately, we have also started looking into hardware security aspects of artificial intelligence when they're applied on edge devices. So in this talk, I'll be, as available in the title, I'll be talking about some fault attacks that we did on lattice-based crypto. Then I'll be talking about one specific side channel attacks on some of the schemes. And also finally, some ideas on how to protect some of the most crucial operations of lattice-based scheme. And I'm like, in a couple of slides, it will be clear why I'm emphasizing or only focusing on lattice-based schemes. So to give you a brief background on what is post-quantum crypto, I'm sure most of the people have heard this name and are aware a bit about what is post-quantum crypto and why it is needed, but just to reiterate its purpose. So over the years, there have been some tremendous progress in the state of quantum computers, and these computers generally will be very helpful for various applications. But the problem is that they will also solve or let's say make some of the hard problems that we know currently to be solvable in potential time. And some of these hard problems are actually are the basis of our current public key crypto like RSA and ECC, where problems like prime factorization or discrete logarithm will be easy to solve with these computers and will keep these algorithms no longer secure. As a result, there is a push towards adopting techniques which are post-quantum secure or quantum resistant, and this whole suite in general is known as post-quantum cryptography. And to standardize this, NIST has started an initiative back in 2017, which is currently in the final round. So these algorithms are normally hard problems that are not known to be threatened by quantum computing. And they come from different families like lattice-based schemes, code-based schemes, multivariate, hash-based, super single isogeny. And one thing which I would definitely like to point here, because for it is sometimes confused, is that although these algorithms are designed to be quantum resistant, they are supposed to be running on a standard hardware. So they have to be as optimized, they have to be as performant so that they can run from a small 8-bit microcontroller all the way to a high-end server. So although the hard problem is difficult for a quantum computer to solve, the algorithm should be designed in a way so that they are easy to compute. And this is basically one part where we'll be exploiting these algorithms. So as a response to this NIST post-quantum crypto competition, there were several algorithms which were published from different families, and all throughout the competition, lattice-based was the most populated category, and that is the reason why it was a prime focus for us. So in the first round, there were 28 out of 69 schemes which were from this family. Then came the second round, where around 12 schemes out of 26 were lattice-based. And recently, the round 3 candidates were actually announced, and lattice-based still makes 7 out of the 15 candidates altogether. And we, in the following, will be actually focusing on some of the finalists that have been announced, and also we'll be looking at some of the algorithms which are very similar to the finalists and but were also there in the previous rounds. So let me start with the first attack that we do, and the first attack is a fault attack that will target non-space schemes that are in the LWE family. So fault attacks are a class of physical attacks where the main idea is that we take a device and we push it into a very non-friendly environment. And since they are not designed for that non-friendly environment, they are bound to make some errors. And the idea is to force them to make some errors and then exploit these errors to learn some secret information about them. So there are several techniques to inject these faults. It could be global or low-cost techniques like playing with clock and voltage, or it could be local and high-cost techniques such as using laser or electromagnetic waves. And recently there have been like software-based technique like Rowhammer and Plunderbolt, which can also be used to inject faults. So although an attacker is free to use any of these techniques to cause the effect that we desire in the following slides, for this work, we'll be focusing on electromagnetic wave because that was the method of our choice. So to encapsulate the problem on which lattice-based schemes are based on, it is known as the LWE problem or the learning with errors. Without going too much into the underlying mathematics, but only focusing on the key vulnerability, we look into this specific LWE instance, which is computed as T is equal to A multiplied by S plus E, where T and A are public information, S and E are secret, and even the error is secret. So the hard problem upon which these LWE-based post-quantum schemes are based upon is that given multiple pairs of A and T for an attacker, it is not possible to actually solve it to retrieve S. And the reason why this is done, why it is hard, is because of the presence of this error component E. So if this error component is not there, the equation becomes very trivial to solve. So I mean, if this error goes to 0, the equation becomes T is equal to A multiplied by S, and such an equation is very easy to solve. So it is only the presence of this error which makes this problem very hard, and this will be the target of our attack in the following slide. So we will show this by an example of New Hope, which was a candidate in the round 2. But since all the schemes are based on a similar structure, it will extend to multiple algorithms. So New Hope is a key encapsulation mechanism. Which supports multiple algorithms, and it is based on ring LWE problem, which is one variant of the LWE problem. And the point to focus here is that there is a function called sample, which is used to generate randomness using a hash function. So basically what we do is like we take like what the algorithm does is that it takes a sample and this sample uses a 32-byte seed as an input and a nonce. And this nonce can be any value in general, but in the submission, the designer had chosen this nonce value to be 0 and 1. And the sole purpose for choosing this value 0 and 1 was due to simplicity and ease of implementation. But as we see here, this can be actually exploited very easily. So normally my S and E are two variables which are computed by this simple operation where sample is computed using an input of noise seed and a value 0, and error is computed simply by changing that 0 to 1 while everything else remains the same. What we do with this fault attack is that we inject a fault so that this 1 can be simply changed to 0 during the computation. And just by doing this, what we end up doing is that we modify this equation, which is t equal to a multiplied by s plus e, and we replace the value of e, which is equal to s now. So now we have a simple equation which has one unknown and one equation. So we can now build it up into a system of equations, and we will have same number of unknowns as the number of equation, and this in mathematics can be trivially solved using Gaussian elimination, and therefore giving us the secret key. So just by a single fault, or just by changing one bit from 1 to 0, we could actually do this attack and recover the secret key. So what does this attack lead to? It leads to a secret key recovery, which can again continue further to do a message recovery. This is applicable to all the variants of LWE, so not just string LWE, but general LWE, module LWE, because we are targeting the basic problem and everything else is built upon it, so that vulnerability remains. And therefore, for our experiments, we also validated that this vulnerability is there in methods like Kyber, Frodo, and Dilithium, which also form the some of the finalists of the NIST post-quantum crypto competition. So we tested this technique using electromagnetic fault attack. So we were working with a homegrown setup where we made our probe by ourselves, and we scanned the whole chip to find the sweet spot where we could inject the fault. And with the PQM4 library, which is a public library available for embedded implementation of post-quantum crypto, we could actually find vulnerabilities in the system with 100% repeatability. So we could actually inject a fault where we could change the value of nonce from 1 to 0 with a perfect accuracy once we were able to finish our profile. So given this, we could like solve these or attack these 4 schemes, which is Neuhoff, Frodo, Kyber, and Dilithium. And depending on the variant of the algorithm, we needed between 1 and 5 faults. So that was, I think, one of the main selling point of this paper, is that we wanted to do some really effective but low complexity attacks so that the number of faults can be minimized. And this is one example of that. And as a further development, Frodo actually took note of our attack, and they acknowledged this problem. And in a later round of the competition, they actually modified their design to solve some of these vulnerabilities. So more details are available in this paper, which we published at COSE 2019. Now, the previous attack was targeting nonce optimization. We will again continue with fault attack in this work, but here we'll be focusing on vector addition. So here our target will be the signature scheme, that is Dilithium, which is again a LWE based scheme and is one of the finalists for the NIST competition. And one of the observations that we noticed and exploited here is that in the Dilithium signing process is very iterative in nature, and it is repeated unless the final sign satisfies a certain condition, and only this value of the signature depends only on the last iteration. So this dependence is what we'll be exploiting. And there are 2 variants of this algorithm, deterministic and probabilistic. So our work focuses only on the deterministic algorithm. And what we do is we attack a simple addition operation or a vector addition operation on the last iteration in the deterministic theory. So the operation will be much more clear in the next slide. So basically, we have in dilithium we have secret key, which is composed of several components: S1, S2, K, Tr, and T0. Without going into the details, S1 and S2 are one of the main components of the secret key, which is normally required for most of the computation, and this generates a signature that is Z, H, and C. Now, Z, H, and C are normally public parameters. So normally, when the signature is computed, in the last operation, you have this computation, which is Z is equal to S1 dot C plus Y. Now, Y is unknown and random. But if we are able to skip this addition, we could actually convert this equation is equal into Z equal to S1 into C. Now, both Z and C are known, and as we saw from the last time, we can simply solve this equation and get the value of S1. Now, normally, like only knowing S1 should not be enough, because the secret key is composed of several components, which is like S2, K, Tr, and T0. But what we noticed for dilithium was that they have a special way of signing, such that you could sign by only knowing S1. So it was not important for us to actually know S2 and other components of the signature. And that actually allowed us to extend our attack, that just by recovering S1, we could perform a forgery of the signature. So what, like to summarize the whole attack, we basically skip addition to get n coefficients. We solve for S1. And as soon as we get S1, we could perform a forgery attack with that. So again, our target board was the same. That was a STM32 microcontroller. And we actually performed a very wide characterization of all the additions that were possible. So normally when we write a code in C, it is simple to write, but depending on the compiler, it can be implemented in different ways. And there are different ways to attack when you look at the assembly level. So let's say if you're doing a plus B, you could attack when loading A, you can attack when loading B. You can attack when performing A plus B, or you could attack when the result of A plus B is stored into the memory. So there are several places to attack, and you have to choose your sweet spot. So when we characterize these different operations, which are code named here, like single skip add or a multiple store add skip, or and other different fault models, we actually saw that there were, although some faults which were skipping one addition at a time. So for example, if we need 2n coefficients, we have to repeat the attack 2n times. But we also saw some fault models where just by a single skip, we could actually recover everything. And by that recovery, like, so with one fault, we could actually perform the whole attack. So this is the like the side channel that we use to time our fault injection. We do a visual inspection of this trace. And as noted before, the signature depends on the last computation. So we see where the last computation is available, and we time our fault to only target that part. So that is when we trigger our fault injection equipment. And by doing so, we could actually, depending on the fault model that we choose, we could actually perform a key recovery with either 500 faults, if we are going for skipping the addition point where we recover coefficient by coefficient, or we could actually perform the full key recovery by only 2 faults. So this part came from a very deep profiling of our device and understanding its behavior. But we again could show that with only 2 faults, we could actually perform a full key recovery. And once this key recovery is done, it allows us to perform unlimited signature forgery. So this work was previously published at Asia CCS in 2019, and more details can be found about this work over there. Now coming to side channel. So in this work, like the third work, what we'll show is like we can also use side channel to perform key recovery in these post-quantum crypto algorithms. And we will show like how easy or how simple it is to look for side channel vulnerabilities, or in other words, like compared to a standard symmetric key crypto, we are looking for different number of classes, and we are trying to identify. Here we are really looking at a case where we want to know like if a computation was changed or not. So this will be clear in the next slide. So to give a brief introduction on side channel attacks are those where we try to listen to sensitive computation through a physical channel in a way that leakage could give us information about the underlying sensitive data. So this is like the first one is an illustration where you're looking at the sound of a locker, trying to not try all the combination, but get the good combination easily. On an embedded device, you are trying to do this by measuring power, timing, or EM radiation of this computation, and then trying to learn the underlying secret key, for example, while a cryptographic algorithm is being computed. So the motivation for this work we take from the Fujisaki Okamoto transform, which is a well-known technique to actually take any scheme and convert into a chosen ciphertext security variant. So we basically target this Fujisaki Okamoto transform, and the idea behind this is that to guarantee chosen ciphertext security, what this transfer does is, like, for a given ciphertext, it will first decrypt it to a message, and it will then, in the FO transform, it will actually verify if the message is correctly decrypted by re-encrypting it and then comparing it with the input. And only if the message is correct, it will give a shared key. Otherwise, if the message is wrong, it will give a false key. So it will not reveal any information about the message if this message is wrong. And that is what guarantees chosen ciphertext security. But this happens in a black box model, where the attacker only can choose the input ciphertext and see the final output. But what we explore here is what happens when the attacker has privileges to measure side channel component while this message has while this computation is happening. And in basic in very layman terms, I would say that what the attacker basically just need to develop here is to make a plain text checking oracle, or need to see for a given change in ciphertext that he puts at the input, does the message at the output change or not. And normally with this FO transform, this is not available, but by side channel, he only needs to distinguish if the message was changed or not. So this was previously demonstrated using a timing attack by Denver and all on algorithms like LAC and RAMSTIC. What we do in this work is that we extend this attack in a more general setting to a range of candidates, including Kyber, Saber, Frodo, New Hope, and LAC. And we show this generic vulnerability can also be exploited by EM side channel or electromagnetic side channel, even though a designer is able to actually make a constant time implementation. So we target the PQM4 library, and we actually show that this attack can be done in a matter of minutes. So the main idea here is that normally the schemes that are that we are studying under this, there are two kinds of schemes. One which actually after the decryption go through a ECC or a error correction code before a FO transform, and then giving the shared key. And the other kind of schemes, they are directly bypassing the ECC block and directly going for the error transform. So if the message has changed, that will either trigger the ECC or they will trigger the FO transform. And this is where we actually measure our side channel and we see if the message has changed or not. And just by this information, we could actually instantiate a plain text checking oracle, which can then let us know like how the algorithm is behaving for a chosen ciphertext, just thus giving us extra information. And the second question that we answer in the paper is that how do we craft a chosen ciphertext such that by using this plain text checking oracle, we could actually recover the secret key. So we verified this vulnerability on this PQM4 library using the STM32, but this time instead of injecting EM faults, we were using a passive EM probe to measure its activity. And just by this activity, we could actually verify that, okay, we can make like a plain text checking oracle and then exploit it to actually recover the secret key. So I won't go into the details of the process because of scarcity of time, but this like we tried this scheme on different algorithms, and I present 3 of the results here. And you can see like between around a couple of thousand traces, like for Kyber, which is the most complicated here, like only 7,000 traces, we could actually recover the full key, and that in terms of measurement time as well as computation time was less than 10 minutes. So this paper was published recently at CHES, and also if you like the details, there's a full video presentation available on YouTube through the CHES link. So please feel free to visit that page. And finally, yeah, okay, I have 4 minutes. So I'll go through to the most recent work where now we start to do something constructive, that is trying to propose some countermeasure. So here we look into one of the like a very important or a core operation of this LWE scheme, that is the number theoric transform or the entity. And this transform has been shown to be quite important, but also very easy to attack in the past, and therefore we propose some countermeasure to that. So it is used in several schemes, that is Kyber, Dilithium, and New Hope, which are actually designed with a parameter choice so that they are entity friendly. So therefore they become an integral part of it. And basically, to compute a polynomial multiplication, for example, z is equal to x times y, what the entity operation does is like it will compute entity on both an x and y individually. Then it will compute the product of that and compute the inverse entity. And if the parameters are chosen appropriately, normally this is much more efficient than computing the multiplication directly, and this gives the performance benefits to these algorithms. And typically this is computed as a simple butterfly operation where XA and XB are inputs, and XC and XT are computed as a transform of this input. And here the only public parameter is W or omega that we'll be protecting in the following slides. So this, for example, is an 8-stage entity, and normally you could actually given the number of inputs of entity, you could have like different entity, which is basically they will have a log n number of stages, and there are also a defined number of addition subtraction operations that are done. So this is a pretty deterministic implementation, and therefore the countermeasures can be generalized to any size of entity. And basically only these omega, which is this omega 4, omega 2, omega 6, are the public parameters, and if these are randomized or protected, that actually gives side channel protection to this operation. So normally for a given ciphertext U and V, basically the message is computing using this equation which is V minus product of U and S. And by computing entity and I entity, we can actually compute this M dash. And let's say the last operation is basically I entity of K, where K is the V dash minus U dash into S. this operation actually, what we want to what an attack typically targets is that it tries to measure through side channel the input of entity, and if it can determine that value k, it is able to actually recover the message and therefore can solve it easily to get the value of s. So this has been shown to be quite devastating because it is a single trace attack, and just by building templates and then following a belief propagation algorithm like this, with only with a single trace, this operation can be completed. So we know from other works that if the input, for example, in case of belief propagation of algorithm is not known, the attack becomes the success rate becomes very low. And this is what we actually apply in this case. Is like in an entity, only omega is one thing which is public, and if that is randomized, the attack becomes very difficult. And basically, what we propose in this paper is masking and shuffling of this computation of this omega to actually make side channel attack difficult. So basically, this is like a 8-stage. This is a 8-stage entity, and what we propose is like a very configurable masking scheme where the masking can be done at each layer. It can be done with 2 masks per stage, 4 masks per stage, or maximum of 8 masks per stage. 8 because it's a 8-stage entity, and by using actually by changing the granularity of the mask also. If you want to use same mask at the input and the output, or different mask at the input and output, you could actually make the strength of the mask. You can vary the strength of the masking according to your desire. The same can be done for the shuffling. So since these are deterministic operations and they have to be they are normally carried in a regular way, you could just shuffle the order of these operation, and thus providing side channel security. And this shuffling can also be done at a different granularity. You could focus only on one stage at a time. You could do an interstage or an intergroup shuffling, and the end result is a security to a cost trade-off that you can achieve. And this is what we actually show like in the results. So for masking, for example, you could do a core splits masking, which is only 6% more expensive, to a very fine mask implementation where you have a 68% overhead. So depending on how much signal to noise ratio does your device has, how difficult is it to do an attack in the unprotected implementation, you could choose what level of masking do you want. Similar trade-off can be also planned for the shuffling operation. And I think, yeah, so that with that, I come to like a conclusion of this talk. So basically, this work, I was touching upon multiple topics just to give you an overview of various fault attack and sidechain attacks that were done, that we performed on various LWE schemes. I did not go too much into the mathematics, but I was like very trying to encapsulate the equations in the simplest form possible, so that the attack or the vulnerability that we target is more clear. So we show several of these vulnerabilities which we identified in the PQC schemes, and this deep investigation has already affected the design choices in the course of the competition. So we have seen this in the initial rounds, and the final rounds candidates are modified by the results that have been published by us, as well as some other authors who have shown these problems in the design parameters. And therefore, we also need to provide effective countermeasures, and especially to have a good trade-off so that a good design choice can be made. This work, of course, has been I would say, rather easier to do thanks to the availability of public libraries like PQM4. But still, it's a long way to go, and we are still learning and understanding these algorithms. And I think such results will continue to enhance our knowledge of them. So thank you very much. And if there are any questions, I'll be very happy.
Shivam, thank you for your nice presentation. We got a question from Saad, who was asking, is the signature forgery attack on dilithium applicable to round 3 dilithium?
I'm sorry, I'm not aware about the changes in the round 3 that was done. But this attack which we did was on the round 1 version of dilithium. So I'm not aware about the changes that were made to the algorithm in the recent updates. But if you can send me an email, okay. I'll be happy to check it and then let you know.
Okay. I am checking. This was the question that you got. Did you get maybe some in private, in direct message?
Just checking. No more questions.
Okay. If there are any questions, please feel free to send them across the chat and Shivam will reply to them. But I guess it was quite technical, so maybe people need some time to digest it. Yes, I can see more questions. Okay, then thank you.
Okay. So like Saad or any other participants, please feel free to send me any questions. Of course, I was touching several papers, so it was quite fast. But if you want to know more details, so they are available in the paper, and you can always reach out to us. And thanks again, Antriksh and Andrea, for organizing this.
Yes, of course. Thank you again for this amazing webinar, and we would like to congratulate you and your team for winning the paper contest at SPACE earlier.
Thank you.
And guys, if you like today's webinar, please feel free to leave feedback for us. We share the link in the chat box. I would like also to share some Hardware.io news. So in the last weeks, our team was working on the Berlin trainings, and we have announced 4 hands-on trainings, and which can be checked out on our website. And if you hurry up, you still have a chance to grab the ticket with a special discount code of 15% with the I Like Coffee promo code. We also have another webinar coming up this Friday, the practical design and implementation of zero trust supply chains for electronic products, delivered by 2 security architects at Bloomberg. We shared the webinar details in the chat box again, but you can also keep an eye on our social media platforms where you can read more about them. And thank you once again for being here with us today. And we are hoping to see you also on Friday. And have a great day and evening. Thank you.